Loot in World of Warcraft. It's the reason we all play the game. Killing that raid boss and getting those sweet purple drops fills us with just this euphoria that keeps us coming back for more and more. But some gear is always more exciting when it drops. It has special extra added effects that Blizzard has added onto it. These have always been happening with some big examples in the last raid being Jathus, the Prison Blade, a very big weapon for two-handed classes, or Edge of Night, another big weapon for rogues. But what new cool items dropped from the new 9.2 raid, Sepulcher the first one? Well, let's find out. Hey everyone, Voodoo here. Today we'll be going over the 9 coolest items from the new 9.2 WoW raid, Sepulcher of the first ones. This video took some time and effort to put together, so if you enjoyed the content, please consider liking and subscribing. It's a great way of showing your support and it'll help me out a lot. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. So the first of these items is something known as the Sepulcher's Savior. So this is a shield that drops from Vigilant Guardian, which is the first boss in the raid. And this is a pretty unique shield, and that has 2 modes, basically. So on screen here is the defensive mode, and it also has an offensive mode. So the on use isn't correct. Basically what this is that whenever you use it in either mode, it'll swap to the other mode, and each mode has added effects. So in defensive mode, you get block, and you get an on use that shields the most injured member of your party. And then whenever you use this, it swaps the offensive mode. And in the offensive mode, you get a reflex. Whenever you take damage, you reflect damage back. And you deal a big burst of damage to your target before swapping back to defensive mode. So this is usable by anything that can use a shield. So elemental shamans, H-pals, and both tank warrior and tank paladin. This would be, a good little pickup for them. It's nothing too major, but it's also more interesting than most shields we see. The block won't be useful for H-Pal or the Resto Shaman, but the damaging portion will be nice. The shield will be nice for your raid or dungeon utility. And the block and reflect will be great for both tanks. So the next item is gluttonous guard braces. And these are plate shoulders that drop from the second boss in the raid, Skolex. Now, these are much less exciting than the shield and pretty much every other item we'll see today. They basically, when you equip them, they give you the ability to eat food faster, much faster. So this is the same wording as the anima power from the 9.1 Tormented Affix, and that was used by healers that allowed them to eat much quicker during during outside of combat, during dungeons, whenever they were low on mana. Sadly, this is a plate item, so the only healer that can use it is H-Pal, and H-Pals don't use a lot of mana in dungeons. It'll be nice for them, but it doesn't really give any big benefit to the other plate classes, so warriors or Death Knights or the non-healing DPS and tank paladins. Another bigger issue, in my opinion, is that this is a tier set slot. So shoulders are one of the 5 tier set slots coming in 9.2. So most of the time, whenever you would use Gluttonous Guard Brace, it would just be replaced by the shoulders for the tier, which come from the last few bosses and have the chance, we don't know yet, of being higher eye level than these. So it's a cool effect. It could be fun just swapping to them before raid or before dungeons to eat faster, but it won't really have that big of an impact on your gameplay. So this next item is crazy, unlike the last Gluttonous Guard Braces. So this is Drape of Mournful Melodies. This is a cloak that drops from the 4th boss in the raid, Desaugne, the Fallen Oracle. And, it's usable by everybody since it's a cloak, and it gives you the eye trinket from Sanctum Domination. So while you're above 50% health, you gain a chunk of your highest secondary stat, and you lose that, and you actually decrease, so you go under what you normally have when you're below 50% health. And while it does sound like a downside, in most content, most of the time, you're going to be above 50% health, especially when it matters, right? Because stats are more impactful during your burst windows than they are outside of them. And this is just crazy. Now, I think because of how messed up the Dungeon Journal is, this is a chance that this could just be a tooltip error and it doesn't go live like this. But if it does go live like this will be wanted by every single person in your raid. Maybe not the tanks, but even then, again, kind of just a crazy stat gain. It's like a free extra trinket, and you're going to be praying every week that this boss drops this either from your vault or from your weekly kill of it, because this is kind of crazy just how much free stats you get off of this cloak. So this is a new weapon coming from the raid, Genesis Lathe. It's trusted by Lehuvium, which is the 6th boss of the raid. It's one of the wing end bosses. And it is a one-handed int mace, so it's usable by every healer, which means more H-Pal fun stuff. And every 40 seconds, you gain a buff called Ephemeral Effusion, which causes your next cast to be enhanced, granting the target what they require. So pretty much what this does is the next time, every 40 seconds, you gain a buff, and whenever you use, as a healer, one of your healing spells, and it's specific for each class, we'll get into that in a second, you have a chance of giving your ally one of a certain set of buffs. So those buffs, we don't know the certain values on them yet, because again, it's just PTR data mining. But you can get Leech increase for 20 seconds, a Speed increase for 20 seconds. You can get an Absorb for 10 seconds. You can heal every second for 5 seconds, and you can get some Avoidance for 20 seconds. And now what spells are used? So Resto Druids is Regrowth. Mistweaver Monks are Enveloping Mist. Holy Paladin is Flash of Light. Holy Priest is Flash Heal. Disciplined Priest is Shadow Mend. And Restoration Shaman is Healing Surge. Now all of those are used fairly commonly except for Holy Paladins. Holy Paladins almost never use Flash of Light. I don't know if this weapon will change that. I don't really heal much. But I don't think this will be used as much by the H-Pals. I think for every other class, this will be a great bonus. Now, maybe the bonus ends up being super crazy, and you want to push Flash of Light every 40 seconds as a Holy Paladin. I don't know. Again, it's PTR. Things change. But it's a nice little bonus for all the healing classes. It gives you, it gives you Avoidance, which is useful. Leech is useful. Speed, not so useful, but the Absorb and the Healing are also useful for 4 to 5. So 4 out of 5 of those buffs are useful almost every time. So, it's going to be a nice weapon. Most healers are probably going to want to pick this up. So these next 2 items I've thrown together because they're essentially the same thing. They drop from the same boss, and they're very similar in what they are. So these are class rings, one for Priest and one for Death Knight, and they drop from Anduin Rin, who is the 8th boss of the raid. And I think this is super cool that Blizzard's doing this. I love when they did the Hunter stuff and the Rogue stuff in the Sanctum Domination raid. I think it's super cool they're doing Priest and Death Knight. It makes sense coming from Anduin. So I love this, and I think they should keep doing this. Anyways, so the Priest ring, Soul Warped Seal of Rin, has the equip that your spells have a chance to grant you Hope, which increases your damage and healing. We don't know how long, we don't know how big of an increase this is. And then you have a higher chance of gaining Hope whenever you target allies or enemies at low health. So it acts almost as an execute bonus or as like a triage healing bonus for healers. And then the Death Knight ring, Soul Warp Seal of Menethil, has the equip of your damaging spells have a chance to inflict despair upon your enemies, which increases the effect of your diseases against them by however much for however many seconds. And you have a higher chance of inflicting this whenever enemies are at higher health. So it's almost an anti-execute, if you will, kind of like the Wild Hunt tactics from Karain. So these are really cool, and I think that the kind of little tooltips they bring, I now believe as you do the pieces the Noble's Inspiration from Anduin is sick, and then No King Rules Forever My Son, a callback to Wrath of the Lich King and Arthas Menethil, who, spoilers, but if you care about spoilers you shouldn't be watching this, is in the Anduin Rin fight, which is really cool. Nothing really interesting, like, for the Priest ring to talk about. It's just a flat damage and healing buff. It's great when you get it. If you don't get it, the ring still gives you haste, so it's not even like you don't get any stats from it. So, just a straight bonus. Same with the DK one, but the DK one's a little bit interesting. So, for Blood Death Knights, I know they used to run Super Strain. There's no way you ever run that anymore with the current tier set, but, it would make it cool without diseases. But it increases the effectiveness of diseases. So, well, yes, this is damage. It also means you'll siphon more life with the blood disease, and you also will gain more runic power from the frost disease, I believe. Anyways, we obviously don't have confirmation of this yet, but that's what makes sense, and that's what goes with how effectiveness works in the past. And I think this is really cool. It gives a slightly more bonus to frost, which is nice. I like frost. I like all the Death Knight specs. They're all kind of cool. And I just think it's super sick that Blizzard is doing these 2 things. These are some of my favorite items from the raid. I think the lore behind the No King Rules Forever My Son, and that Anduin's possessed by these, and the rings for Priest and Death Knight is super sick. And I just like these. I also really like this next weapon, Antombra Shadow of the Cosmos. So this is a really cool in-game model. I'm not going to show it here, but whenever you get your hands on 9.2, you get into it, check out the Dungeon Journal. This thing's sick. So this is a one-handed int dagger, so most casters can use this. And it gives the effect of your offensive spells build stacks of Singularity, where you gain 0 versatility and speed per stack after 20. Now, obviously, 0 is just a variable. It can be anything else. And then whenever you reach 20 stacks, the bonuses are doubled and exist for how many seconds. And then it expires, you lose all stacks, and you have kind of an internal cooldown before you can gain stacks again. I think that's how that would work. Approaching singularity could also mean when you hit 20, but I believe this means that you gain a cooldown for gaining stacks. So versatility is just a flat damage gain. The speed is nice. It doesn't really give any major gameplay bonuses. Maybe, you know, there's some movement you have to deal with while you have a decent number of stacks that give you a good amount of mobility that lets you get there easier or avoid the mechanic. Again, interestingly, the stacks don't seem to have a duration, which means that they would just exist forever. I expect this to be changed, or they would reset upon combat starting, or else you could just stack to 19 before raid, and then you hit number 1 on the pull, and you have 20 stacks during lust and cooldown burn, and it would be kind of crazy. So I think that would change. I imagine these are going to be a duration, or you reset on pull. Another thing, this bonus could be quite powerful to play around in your cooldown windows, depending on how fast it stacks and depending on how well your cooldowns can line up with the bonus. Because again, you know, versatility flat damage gain. So if you're getting, even if it's 1%, right, 20 stacks of 1% doubled is 40% versatility. That's just a large damage gain. I imagine it's going to be way smaller than that, right? I imagine it's going to be like, I don't know, maybe like 30 versatility, which would add up. I have no idea how fast versatility scales, but it won't be that high. But I still think this is a cool thing. I love weapons with bonus effects, and I'm excited for this. Speaking of weapons with bonus effects, two-handed strength users get one too. So this is the Gavel of the First Arbiter. Now I know it doesn't have strength yet, but it's a mace, and strength will probably be added. Again, it has like a half of attack speed and really terrible damage, so that'll be changed. But this has a cool ability. So whenever you first damage an enemy, you do an extra bit of damage, and you rip their soul out, which kind of spawns nearby as a little like a little mob nearby. And whenever you slay the soul, you send it to its proper afterlife, and you gain a bonus depending on that afterlife. So this is kind of playing to, this drops from the jailer, the final boss of the raid. And this kind of plays to him being the original arbiter, right? So you're basically becoming the arbiter. You're ripping the soul out of the enemy, and you're decreeing which afterlife it goes to. So you're playing the role of the arbiter, directing the flow of souls. This raid, this is a hard weapon to evaluate. So in single target, you're only ever going to get one of these, right? So it's not good. It's not great unless the bonuses are insane. Now we have no idea what they are. I could speculate on them in a second, but you know, unless the bonuses are crazy, then this weapon won't be the best in single target. In AoE fights, like in stuff like the new Zymox fight, or just stuff with constantly spawning ads, insane. You get a high uptime on the buffs. M plus, literally crazy. You get multiple buffs every time you start a new pack out. This would be crazy. So I think the buffs are going to be similar to the Kyrian Druid Link. This is just tinfoil hat stuff. Like, we have no confirmation on this, but this is what I think, and I think this could make sense because we already show that the 4 major afterlives are Revendreth, Ardenweald, Molderaxis, and Bastion. And the 4 covenants are on there, and the Kyrian Druids can bond to those 4 covenants, and you get crit with Venthyr and Nightfade with haste. Necro, you get versatility, and Kyrian, you get mastery. And I think that by sending these souls to their proper afterlife, I think that, you know, maybe a Venthyr soul will give you crit, a Nightfade soul will give you haste, and so on. I think that would make sense. Again, I have no idea. Maybe it's just a crazy strength buff, or maybe it's just a flat damage amp. We don't know, but that's my guess. That's my speculation. The weapon itself also has some cool animations on the PTR. We haven't seen if they've been tied to the weapon itself. They've just been data mined. This is the jailer's actual weapon, so it's possible that these happen during the fight. But there's a bunch of cool flames, and the jaw like open and closes. And also there's this massive chain that flies into the mouth. We don't know if that's going to be in. We don't know how that's going to work. But this is another cool weapon. Any two-handed strength mace class will want to pick this up. Warriors, 2 of them. This is sick. I love when Blizzard does this again. So the last of our cool items is called the World Killer Iris. This is a neck that also drops from the Jailers, the last boss of the raid. And this is less mechanically cool. Again, values are to be tuned. This is just a neck that gives you crit, haste, and mastery. That's cool. But the reason it's super cool is that this relates to the Heart of Azeroth from BFA. So we already know, again, spoilers, that the Jailer fight will involve us protecting Azeroth in some way as the Jailer assaults it from the Forge of Originations, where the entire cosmos was created. And this is essentially anti-evil version of the Heart of Azeroth. It gets the same stats, and it has even an like almost the same text. So, a living symbol of despair, born by the nemesis of a doomed eternity, the fate of Azeroth will be shared by all her children. The Heart of the Azeroth, I think tooltip was like a living symbol of hope, born by the something of a damaged world or whatever. The fate of Azeroth will be shared by all her children. So it's a cool kind of mirror image evil version of the Heart of Azeroth. As a neck, having 3 stats, as long as it's tuned well, it will be good. A lot of classes will appreciate all 3, even if maybe you don't like one of them. Maybe you really like crit mass, but you don't like haste. Having some haste will still, it's never a bad thing. So 3 stats is cool. The fact that it relates back to the Heart of Azeroth is cool. And I'm just glad to be going back to Azeroth in 10.0 whenever we finally get there. So I think this is just a cool story callback. Just a nice little way to end up the raid. So I've thrown these 3 items in kind of as a bonus. The thing with these, they don't have any tooltips on the PTR currently. Now, that could be nothing. They could just have stats added to them. But I figured I'd throw these in here in case that them not having tooltips means that they get a special effect later. I think that could be cool. Again, weapons with special effects, unique items are always great. We have a fist weapon, draws the in-between, that drops from Skolex. We have Prelude to Pride. So right now, this is it's a 2-handed sword, but there's a bug in the Dungeon Journal where this could drop from either Zymox or Pantheon, because those 2 bosses share the same loot. I think it'll come from Pantheon, because Pride relates with Sargenathrius, and he is in that fight. And then we have Obscured Fractal Prism, which is an intellect offhand that drops from Halandris, which is one of the end bosses of the Wing. So I think that's the 7th boss. And then Pantheon, I think, is the 5th. Don't quote me on that, though. So I've included these just kind of to be thorough. Nothing really to talk about, but, keep your eye on these. I will update in the comments if these have added extra effects added to them in the future. Could be nothing, but I figured I'd just throw this on here anyways. So those are all the cool new items coming from the 9.2 Sepulcher the First One's raid. I didn't include tier sets here. They're going to get their own video, and I figured, I didn't want to talk about all the classes tier sets because those are all super cool items. I'm super excited for this raid. I love the visuals. All the bosses seem cool. I can't wait to watch the World First Race with the last 3 being untested. Hope it turns out well. And I'm excited to get my hands on tier sets and some of these new items. Comment down below what your favorite item is. Let me know if you have any questions or what you want to see me do next. And thanks, guys, for watching.